The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune as Marcus Rodriguez pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridor of Meridian Financial Tower. 23 floors of glass and steel that housed some of the city's most powerful executives. And here he was at 2:47 a.m., making sure their marble floors gleamed for another day of million-dollar deals. Marcus had been working the night shift for 3 years now, ever since the factory closed and took his supervisor job with it. At 42, starting over as a janitor wasn't exactly the career pivot he'd envisioned, but it paid the bills and kept food on the table for him and his elderly mother. The December wind rattled the windows as he made his way toward the service elevator. Chicago winters were brutal, but inside the tower, the heating system kept everything at a perfect 72 degrees. He'd just finished the executive floor when he heard a sound that didn't belong in the sterile silence of corporate America. After midnight, a cry, faint, almost lost in the building's mechanical whispers, but unmistakably human. Marcus stopped, his hand frozen on the cart's handle. The sound came again, weak and desperate, echoing from somewhere near the loading dock. His pulse quickened as he abandoned his cart and hurried toward the source. The loading dock was a concrete cavern that smelled of exhaust fumes and industrial detergent. Delivery trucks came and went during business hours, but now it stood empty, except for the massive dumpsters lined against the far wall. The crying grew louder as he approached, and his heart nearly stopped when he realized where it was coming from. There, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket and placed inside a cardboard box, next to the largest dumpster, was a baby, Dios mío. Marcus whispered, his hands shaking as he knelt beside the makeshift bassinet. The infant couldn't have been more than a few days old, her tiny fists waving in the cold air. Her face red from crying. A note was pinned to the blanket, written in shaky handwriting, "Her name is Elena. Please take care of her. I can't." The temperature outside was dropping below freezing. If Marcus hadn't been making his rounds, if he'd taken his break 15 minutes later, if he'd decided to skip the loading dock tonight, he didn't want to even think about what would have happened. Without hesitation, Marcus scooped the baby into his arms, blanket and all. She was so small, so impossibly fragile, that he was afraid his calloused hands might hurt her. But the moment he lifted her, her crying subsided to soft whimpers, as if she somehow knew she was safe. "It's okay, Pecueca," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I've got you now." Marcus had never been a father. His wife, Carmen, had died in a car accident 5 years ago, before they'd had the chance to start the family they'd dreamed about. The pain of that loss had left him believing that parenthood would never be part of his story. But as he looked down at this abandoned child, something shifted inside his chest, a protective instinct so fierce it took his breath away. He called 911 from the security phone, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. The paramedics arrived first, followed by 2 police officers and a social worker who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "At 3 in the morning, you found her in the dumpster area?" Officer Martinez asked, scribbling notes while the paramedics examined the baby next to it. Marcus corrected, "In a box. Someone left her there, but they didn't just throw her away. They made sure she was wrapped up and left a note with her name." The social worker, a tired-looking woman named Jana Foster, approached with a clipboard. "The baby appears healthy, considering. We'll need to take her to the hospital for a full examination. Then she'll go into emergency foster care while we try to locate family members." "What if there are no family members?" Marcus asked. Foster shrugged. "Then she enters the system. Hopefully a family will adopt her quickly. Infants usually have better chances than older children." Usually, hopefully, the words sat like stones in Marcus's stomach. As the paramedics prepared to transport Elena to the hospital, Marcus made a decision that would change the trajectory of both their lives forever. "I want to foster her," he said. The room fell silent except for the baby's soft breathing. Foster looked up from her paperwork, eyebrows raised. "Mr. Rodriguez, fostering requires extensive background checks, home studies, training. Then let's start the process." Marcus's voice was firm, brooking no argument. "I found her. I saved her. I'm not going to let her disappear into a system where she might spend years waiting for someone to care about her. Officer Martinez exchanged a look with his partner. "Sir, this is a big decision. Maybe you should think about it." "I have thought about it," Marcus interrupted. "Every night for the past 3 years, I've walked these halls alone, cleaning up after people who make more in a day than I make in a year. I've wondered what my purpose is, why I'm here." He looked down at Elena, who had fallen asleep in the paramedic's arms. "Now I know." The next several hours passed in a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and bureaucratic procedures. By the time the sun rose over Chicago's skyline, Elena was in the hospital being examined by pediatricians, and Marcus was sitting in a social services office filling out what felt like hundreds of forms. Foster had called in her supervisor, a kind-faced man named David Chen, who seemed more optimistic about Marcus's chances. "Your background check came back clean," Chen said, reviewing Marcus's file. "Steady employment, no criminal history, stable housing. The fact that you've been caring for your mother shows you understand responsibility. We'll need to do a home study, and you'll have to complete 20 hours of training. But I don't see any red flags that would prevent you from fostering Elena." "How long will the process take?" Marcus asked. "Emergency placement can happen within 72 hours if everything checks out. Elena will stay in the hospital. Until then, they want to monitor her for a few days anyway." Marcus spent those 3 days in a whirlwind of activity. He converted his spare bedroom into a nursery, buying a crib, changing table, and enough baby supplies to stock a small store. His mother, Rosa, was initially skeptical but melted the moment she saw Elena's picture. "She looks like an angel," Rosa said, her arthritic fingers tracing the baby's face in the photograph. "Carmen would have loved her." The home study went smoothly. The social worker who visited was impressed by the nursery Marcus had prepared, and the obvious love and support Elena would receive from both Marcus and his mother. On the 3rd day, Marcus walked into Chicago General Hospital as a single man and walked out as a father. Elena was perfect, 6 pounds, 2 ounces of pure possibility, with dark hair and enormous brown eyes that seemed to take in everything around her when the nurse placed her in Marcus's arms for the first time as her official guardian. She looked up at him with such trust that he had to blink back tears. "Welcome home, Mija," he whispered. "What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories." The first year was a beautiful kind of chaos. Marcus had read every parenting book he could get his hands on, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of caring for an infant while working nights and trying to catch sleep during the day. Rosa helped as much as her health allowed, but at 78, she tired easily. Elena was a surprisingly good baby. She slept through the night by 3 months and rarely fussed unless she was hungry or needed changing. But it was the little moments that took Marcus's breath away. Her first smile, the way she tracked his movements across the room, the tiny hand that would wrap around his finger during feedings. He'd never experienced love like this, protective, unconditional, and so fierce it sometimes scared him. Every decision he made was filtered through what would be best for Elena. When the building management company offered him a promotion to day shift supervisor with better pay, he almost turned it down because it would mean less time with her. Only Rosa's insistence that Elena needed financial security convinced him to accept. The promotion came with a small office in the Meridian Financial Tower and a team of 6 other janitors to manage. Marcus threw himself into the work, determined to prove he deserved the opportunity. He implemented new efficiency schedules, negotiated better deals with supply companies, and slowly transformed the building's maintenance operations from adequate to exceptional. Elena grew from a quiet infant into a curious toddler with an infectious laugh and an insatiable appetite for learning. Marcus read to her every night, usually falling asleep in the rocking chair with her in his arms and a picture book open across his lap. Rosa delighted in teaching her Spanish songs and cooking simple meals together, Elena standing on a stool to help stir ingredients. When Elena turned 2, Marcus legally adopted her. The process was surprisingly straightforward. No birth parents had ever come forward, and Elena had been thriving in his care. Judge Patricia Reyes, who had handled hundreds of adoption cases, later said she'd never seen a child more clearly. Meant to be with her family, this little girl has found her home, she declared, making it official. Marcus framed the adoption certificate and hung it in Elena's room, right next to a photo of the three of them, Marcus, Elena, and Rosa, taken at Navy Pier during Elena's first summer. It was one of his most treasured possessions. As Elena grew older, her intelligence became impossible to ignore. She was reading at age 4, solving complex puzzles that frustrated children twice her age, and asking questions that made Marcus scramble for age-appropriate answers about everything. From why the sky was blue to how elevators worked, Marcus enrolled her in the best preschool he could afford, a decision that stretched their budget but proved worthwhile. When Elena's teachers consistently praised her advanced abilities, Mrs. Patterson, her kindergarten teacher, called Marcus in for a conference during Elena's first semester. "Mr. Rodriguez, I hope you won't take this the wrong way, but Elena is operating at a level far beyond her peers. She's reading at a 3rd grade level, and her mathematical reasoning is extraordinary. Have you considered having her tested for the gifted program?" Marcus had noticed Elena's abilities, of course, but hearing it confirmed by a professional filled him with a mixture of pride and anxiety. He wanted Elena to have every opportunity to reach her potential, but he also worried about pushing her too hard or making her feel different from other children. The testing revealed what everyone suspected. Elena's IQ was in the 99th percentile. The school district recommended advancing her to grade levels, but Marcus chose a more moderate approach, keeping her with children her own age, but providing enrichment activities and accelerated coursework. "I don't want her to miss being a kid," he explained to the school counselor. "She'll have plenty of time to be brilliant. Right now, she needs to learn how to be happy." It was a philosophy that served them well. Elena excelled academically while also playing soccer, taking piano lessons, and maintaining friendships with children from all walks of life. Marcus made sure she understood the value of hard work and education, but also the importance of kindness, integrity, and never forgetting where she came from. Their life wasn't without challenges. Money was always tight, especially as Elena's activities and educational needs grew more expensive. Marcus picked up weekend maintenance contracts with other buildings to make ends meet, often working 6 days a week. Rosa's health began to decline when Elena was 7, requiring more medical care and eventually oxygen support at home. But they were happy. Their small apartment in Pilsen was filled with laughter, homework sessions at the kitchen table, Rosa's cooking, and Elena's piano practice echoing through the thin walls. Marcus had never imagined that a life so different from what he'd planned could feel so complete. When Elena was 8, she started asking more questions about her birth parents. Marcus had always been honest about her adoption, telling her the story of how he found her in age-appropriate terms. But now she wanted details he wasn't sure how to provide. "Was my birth mother very young?" Elena asked one evening as Marcus tucked her into bed. "I think so, Mija. The note she left suggested she was scared and couldn't take care of you the way you deserved. Was she poor like us?" Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "We're not poor, Elena. We have everything we need and people who love us. That makes us rich in the ways that matter most." Elena considered this seriously. "Do you think she ever wonders about me?" "I'm sure she does. How could anyone not wonder about someone as special as you?" "Do you think I'll ever meet her?" Marcus's heart clenched. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know that whatever happens in the future, you'll always be my daughter, and I'll always be your papa. Nothing can change that." Elena smiled and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I know, Papa. I love you." "I love you too, Mija, more than all the stars in the sky." As Elena entered middle school, her academic achievements continued to astound her teachers. She was invited to participate in advanced mathematics competitions, science fairs, and academic bowls. Marcus attended every event, often the only parent there still wearing his work uniform, but always the proudest person in the room. It was at a citywide science fair when Elena was 12 that their lives took an unexpected turn. Elena had created a project analyzing energy efficiency in commercial buildings. Inspired by watching Marcus work and her own observations about waste in large structures, Her presentation was sophisticated enough to impress the panel of judges, which included several prominent business leaders. One of those judges was Victoria Hawthorne, the CEO of Meridian Financial Services, the company that occupied the top 15 floors of the building where Marcus worked. After Elena's presentation, Victoria approached Marcus with genuine curiosity. "Your daughter's project is remarkable," she said. "The level of analysis and practical application is something I'd expect from a graduate student, not a 12-year-old. Marcus beamed with pride. "Elena has always been special. She sees things differently than other kids. I can tell." Victoria studied Elena, who was explaining her methodology to another group of interested adults. "Has she shown interest in business or economics?" "She's interested in everything," Marcus laughed. "Last month she wanted to be a marine biologist. This month it's environmental engineering. I just try to encourage her curiosity and see where it leads." Victoria handed Marcus her business card. "If Elena ever wants to tour our offices or learn more about the business world, please don't hesitate to call. Bright minds like hers are exactly what the next generation of leaders will need." Marcus looked down at the elegant card, noting the Meridian Financial Services logo. It was the same logo he saw every day when he arrived at work, the company whose executives' offices he'd been cleaning for years. "Thank you," he said, not mentioning that he probably knew the layout of Victoria's office better than she did. "I'll let Elena know about your offer." That night, Elena peppered Marcus with questions about Victoria and Meridian Financial Services. She was fascinated by the idea of a woman running such a large company and wanted to know everything about how businesses operated. "Maybe I could work there someday," Elena mused as they looked up Meridian's website together. Marcus smiled, not wanting to dampen her enthusiasm by pointing out the vast gulf between their current circumstances and the corporate world Victoria inhabited. Instead, he encouraged her dreams while making sure she understood the hard work that would be required to achieve them. "If that's what you want, Mija, then we'll figure out how to make it happen. But remember, success isn't just about what job you have or how much money you make. It's about using your gifts to make the world a little better than you found it." Elena nodded solemnly. "Like how you made my world better by finding me." Marcus's throat tightened with emotion. "No, Elena, you made my world better. You made it perfect." Elena's freshman year of high school brought new challenges and opportunities. Marcus had researched the best public schools in the city, ultimately deciding on Lincoln Park High School, which had an excellent STEM program and a diverse student body. The commute was longer and more expensive, but Elena's education was worth any sacrifice. It quickly became apparent that Elena was operating on a different level than most of her classmates. Her teachers began recommending her for advanced placement courses, academic competitions, and summer enrichment programs. Marcus found himself navigating a world of educational opportunities he'd never known existed. Spending hours researching programs and applications, Elena's guidance counselor, Mrs. Chen, called Marcus in for a meeting during Elena's sophomore year. "Mr. Rodriguez, I want to discuss Elena's future academic path," she began, spreading several brochures across her desk. "Elena has the potential to attend any university in the country, but we need to start planning now. The most competitive schools require not just excellent grades, but extracurricular activities, leadership experience, and standardized test preparation." Marcus looked at the glossy brochures featuring campuses that looked more like vacation resorts than schools. Harvard, MIT, Stanford, names that seemed to exist in a different universe from his daily reality. "What would something like this cost?" he asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Mrs. Chen's expression was gentle but direct. "Tuition at these institutions can run $60,000 to $80,000 per year. However, Elena would likely qualify for significant financial aid, and many schools have generous need-based assistance programs. Some of these universities actually cost less for families in your income bracket than state schools would." The numbers were staggering, but Mrs. Chen's confidence in Elena's abilities was infectious. They developed a 4-year plan that included advanced coursework, standardized test preparation, volunteer work, and leadership activities designed to build the strongest possible college application. Elena threw herself into the plan with characteristic determination. She joined the debate team, volunteered at a local community center teaching math to younger students, and started a recycling program at her school. Her grades remained perfect, and her test scores placed her in the top 1% nationally. But it was her junior year science project that truly set her apart. Working with a professor from the University of Chicago, Elena developed an algorithm for optimizing energy usage. In large commercial buildings, the project won first place at the state science fair and earned her recognition from several environmental organizations. More importantly, it caught the attention of Victoria Hawthorne again. Victoria had judged the state science fair and was astounded to see the same brilliant girl she'd met 5 years earlier, now presenting research that could revolutionize building management systems. After Elena's presentation, Victoria approached the Rodriguezes with an unusual proposition. "Elena, your work is extraordinary," Victoria said. "I'd like to offer you an internship this summer at Meridian Financial Services. You'd work with our facilities management team to implement and test your energy optimization system in a real-world environment." Elena's eyes widened with excitement, but Marcus felt a flutter of anxiety. Victoria still didn't know that he worked in the same building, and he wasn't sure how to handle the potential awkwardness of the situation. "That sounds amazing," Elena said, "but I should mention that my father actually works at Meridian Tower." "He's the Elena," Marcus interrupted quietly, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. He turned to Victoria with a slightly sheepish expression. "Ms. Hawthorne, I'm the night maintenance supervisor at your building. I've been working there for over 10 years. Victoria's eyebrows rose in surprise, then her expression shifted to one of genuine respect. "Mr. Rodriguez, I had no idea. Your work keeps our building running smoothly. I hear nothing but praise about the maintenance operations from our facilities team." Marcus felt a flush of pride at the recognition, but also concern about how this revelation might affect Elena's opportunity. Victoria seemed to read his thoughts. "This doesn't change my offer in any way, Elena. In fact, it makes me even more confident in your character. You've clearly learned strong work ethics and values from your father." She turned back to Marcus. "I hope you'll allow Elena to accept the internship. I think we could learn as much from her as she learns from us." The summer internship exceeded everyone's expectations. Elena worked with Meridian's engineering team to install and monitor her energy optimization system throughout the building. The results were remarkable: a 15% reduction in energy usage that translated to hundreds of thousands of dollars in annual savings. But Elena's impact went beyond the technical achievements. Her enthusiasm, fresh perspective, and genuine curiosity about every aspect of the business impressed everyone she worked with. She attended meetings with executives, shadowed different departments, and even presented her findings to the board of directors. Marcus would sometimes catch glimpses of Elena during his work shifts, always professionally dressed and deep in conversation with people who managed billion-dollar portfolios. The pride he felt was overwhelming, but it was tinged with a growing awareness that Elena was moving into a world where he might not be able to follow or fully understand her experiences. That concern intensified when Elena's college acceptances started arriving during her senior year. Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Princeton, every school she'd applied to wanted her, and most offered full scholarships that covered not just tuition, but living expenses and study abroad opportunities. The decision ultimately came down to Harvard's combined business and engineering program, which would allow Elena to pursue her interests in both technical innovation and business leadership. The full scholarship meant Marcus wouldn't have to worry about Elena accumulating crushing student debt, but Cambridge, Massachusetts felt impossibly far from their small apartment in Chicago. The night before Elena left for college, Marcus found her sitting in Rose's room, holding his mother's hand. Rose's health had deteriorated significantly over the past year, and they all knew this goodbye might be their last. "Promise me you'll make us proud, Mija," Rosa whispered, her voice weak but determined. "I promise, Abuela. Everything I achieve will be for you and Papa." Rosa smiled and squeezed Elena's hand with what little strength she had left. "You've already made us proud. Now go show the world what the Rodriguez family is made of." Marcus, drove Elena to the airport the next morning, both of them fighting back tears. At the security checkpoint, Elena threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. "Thank you, Papa, for everything, for saving me, for believing in me, for teaching me that love and hard work can overcome anything." "No, Mija," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving my life meaning. You're going to do incredible things, and I'll be cheering you on every step of the way." As Marcus watched Elena disappear through the security gate, he felt a mixture of pride, anxiety, and profound loneliness. For 18 years, his entire world had revolved around Elena's needs, dreams, and achievements. Now she was beginning her own journey, and he would have to figure out what his own life looked like without her daily presence. Rosa passed away peacefully in her sleep 6 weeks after Elena left for college. Marcus had been expecting it, but the loss still hit him hard. Elena flew home for the funeral, and they grieved together for the woman who had helped raise Elena and had been Marcus's anchor. "Since Carmen's death, she was so proud of you," Marcus told Elena as they stood by Rosa's grave. "She used to tell everyone in the neighborhood about her granddaughter at Harvard. I'm going to miss her so much," Elena cried. "I'm sorry I wasn't here at the end." She understood, Mija. She wanted you to focus on your studies. Rosa lived to see you succeed. That was enough for her. The tension is building. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which character you're rooting for. Your support helps me create more incredible stories like this one. Elena's years at Harvard were transformative in ways Marcus had never anticipated. She excelled academically, of course, graduating summa cum laude with degrees in both business administration and environmental engineering. But it was her extracurricular activities that truly shaped her character and future trajectory. She founded a student organization focused on sustainable business practices, led a volunteer program that brought business students to underserved communities to provide free financial literacy education, and spent her summers interning at various companies where she could apply her technical skills to real-world problems. Each time Elena came home for holidays or breaks, Marcus noticed subtle changes in her. Her vocabulary had expanded to include terms he didn't always understand. Her clothing had evolved from practical to polished, and her stories were filled with names of places and people that seemed to exist in a completely different universe than his daily reality. But the core of who Elena was remained unchanged. She still insisted on cooking with Marcus when she was home, still asked about his work with genuine interest, and still treated everyone she met with the same kindness and respect. She'd learned growing up in their small apartment that it was during Elena's senior year that Victoria Hawthorne made an offer that would change everything. Elena had maintained contact with Victoria throughout college, updating her on her academic progress and seeking mentorship advice. When Meridian Financial Services decided to create a new division focused on sustainable investing and environmental impact, Victoria immediately thought of Elena. "I'd like you to consider joining Meridian after graduation," Victoria told Elena during their senior year meeting. "We're launching an environmental, social, and governance investment division, and I can't think of anyone better qualified to help build it from the ground up." The offer was generous, a starting salary that was more than Marcus made in 2 years, comprehensive benefits, and the opportunity to work directly with some of the most influential investors in the country. But it was the chance to implement her ideas about sustainable business practices on a large scale that truly excited Elena. Marcus was thrilled about Elena's opportunity, but also nervous about what it would mean for their relationship. Elena would be working in the same building where he'd spent the last 15 years cleaning offices and maintaining equipment. But now she'd be on the other side of the professional divide that separated executives from support staff. "Are you worried it will be awkward?" Elena asked him directly when she shared the news about the job offer. Marcus considered the question carefully. "A little," he admitted, "but I'm mostly proud. You've earned this opportunity, and you're going to do amazing things with it. Nothing will change between us, Papa. You're my father, and that's more important than any job title." Elena started at Meridian Financial Services 3 months after graduation, moving into a spacious downtown apartment that was still close enough for weekly dinners with Marcus. True to her word, their relationship remained strong, though the logistics of their different schedules made spontaneous time together more challenging. Elena's impact at Meridian was immediate and significant. She developed investment strategies that prioritized companies with strong environmental and social records, without sacrificing financial returns. Her first fund outperformed market expectations by 12% in its first year, attracting attention from institutional investors and financial media. But it was Elena's approach to leadership that truly set her apart. She insisted on knowing every person who worked at Meridian, from the security guards to the executive assistants to the maintenance staff. She learned their names, asked about their families, and treated everyone with the same respect regardless of their position in the company hierarchy. Marcus watched this aspect of Elena's professional development with particular pride. During his night shifts, he would sometimes encounter Elena working late in her office, and she would always take time to chat with him and his team. She remembered details about their lives, asked thoughtful questions, and made everyone feel valued. "Your daughter is special," Victoria told Marcus during an unexpected encounter in the elevator one evening. "Not just because of her technical abilities, but because of her character. She's going to go far in this company." By Elena's third year at Meridian, she had been promoted twice and was managing a team of 12 investment professionals. Her division had grown from a small experimental unit to one of the company's most profitable departments, environmental. Investing was becoming mainstream, and Elena was recognized as one of the industry's rising stars. Marcus couldn't have been prouder, but he also couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Elena's world was expanding rapidly, and he sometimes felt like he was watching her life from the outside. She traveled frequently for work, attended high-profile conferences, and moved in social circles that seemed impossibly sophisticated to him. Their weekly dinners remained sacred, but Marcus noticed that Elena seemed tired and stressed in ways that worried him. The pressure of managing millions of dollars in investments, leading a growing team, and representing Meridian at industry events was taking a toll. "Are you happy, Mija?" Marcus asked during one of their dinners. Elena looked up from her plate, surprised by the question. "Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? You seem different lately, more stressed, like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Elena sighed and set down her fork. "It's just been a busy time. We're launching 3 new funds next quarter, and the board is expecting exceptional returns. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking a tightrope without a safety net. You know you don't have to prove anything to anyone, right? You've already exceeded every expectation anyone could have had." "I know, Papa. But I also know how rare opportunities like this are. I want to make the most of it, not just for me, but for all the people who don't get these chances. I want to show that success can come from anywhere." Marcus understood Elena's drive and admired her sense of responsibility, but he also worried that she was pushing herself too hard. His concerns proved prescient when Elena called him at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "Elena, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "I made a mistake, Papa, a big one. I recommended an investment that went bad, and we lost $12 million. Victoria is furious. The board is questioning my judgment, and I think I might get fired." Marcus's heart broke hearing the devastation in Elena's voice. "Where are you right now?" "At home. I've been going over the numbers all night, trying to figure out where I went wrong. I'm coming over." Marcus drove through the empty Chicago streets to Elena's apartment, finding her curled up on her couch with financial documents spread around her like confetti. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she looked smaller and more vulnerable than he'd seen her since she was a child. He sat beside her and pulled her into his arms, letting her cry against his shoulder the way she had when she was little and had scraped her knee or lost a favorite toy. "Tell me what happened," he said gently. Elena explained that she had recommended investing in a clean energy startup that had seemed promising but had filed for bankruptcy. When their technology failed to meet performance benchmarks, the due diligence had been thorough and the investment committee had approved her recommendation. But Elena felt personally responsible for the loss. $12 million, Papa, That's more money than most people see in their entire lives. And I lost it because I believed in a company that wasn't ready. Marcus listened to the full story, then asked a question that surprised Elena. How many successful investments have you made? What do you mean? In 3 years at Meridian. How many investments have you recommended that made money? Elena thought about it. Maybe 40 or 50 successful ones. And how much money did those investments make? I don't know, maybe to 100 million in profits, Marcus nodded. So you've made the company to $100 million and lost 12 million. That sounds like a pretty good track record to me. But no buts, Miguel, you're not perfect, and you never will be. What matters is that you learn from this mistake and keep moving forward. If Victoria fires you for one bad investment after all your successes, then Meridian doesn't deserve you. Elena looked up at her father with surprise and gratitude. How did you get so wise? Marcus smiled and smoothed her hair back from her face. I learned from watching you. You taught me that setbacks are just setups for comebacks. The next morning, Elena walked into Victoria's office prepared for the worst, but determined to handle whatever consequences came with grace and professionalism. What she found instead was a conversation that would reshape her understanding of leadership and resilience. Elena, sit down, Victoria said, her expression serious, but not angry. I want to talk to you about yesterday's investment committee meeting. Victoria, I want to apologize. Stop. Victoria held up a hand. I don't want an apology. I want you to tell me what you learned from this experience. Elena was taken aback by the question, but answered thoughtfully. I learned that even the most thorough analysis can't predict every variable. I learned that I need to build better safeguards into our portfolio to limit exposure to single investments, and I learned that I take losses more personally than I should, which affects my judgment. Victoria nodded approvingly. Good. Those are exactly the lessons I hoped you would take from this. Elena, in my 25 years in this business, I've made dozens of bad investments, some much worse than this one. The difference between successful investors and failed ones isn't that successful investors never lose money, it's that they learn from their losses and don't let fear paralyze them. So I'm not fired, Victoria laughed. Fired, Elena. You're one of the most valuable assets this company has. This loss is a rounding error compared to the value you've created. What I'm concerned about is making sure you don't lose confidence in yourself over one setback. The conversation marked a turning point in Elena's career and her relationship with Victoria. Rather than seeing Elena as a protege who needed protection, Victoria began treating her as a peer and potential successor. She included Elena in strategic planning meetings, assigned her to lead major client presentations, and began grooming her for executive leadership. Elena's response to the investment loss became a defining moment that demonstrated her character and resilience. Rather than becoming conservative or risk-averse, she developed more sophisticated analytical frameworks and risk management strategies that actually made her a better investor. Her next several investments were not only profitable but revolutionary, establishing new standards for environmental due diligence in the industry. As Elena's reputation and responsibilities continued to grow, Marcus found himself grappling with an unexpected emotion: loneliness. Elena was busier than ever, traveling internationally for business and working longer hours. Their weekly dinners sometimes had to be rescheduled, and Marcus realized that his entire social life had been built around Elena's presence. For the first time since finding Elena as a baby, Marcus began to think seriously about his own future and desires. He was 55 years old, had been single for over 15 years, and had devoted his entire adult life to raising Elena and caring for Rosa. Now that Elena was successful and independent, what did he want his life to look like? The question became more pressing when Meridian's building management company offered Marcus a promotion to district supervisor, overseeing maintenance operations for all their commercial properties throughout the city. The job came with a significant salary increase, better benefits, and the opportunity to move into building operations management. Marcus discussed the opportunity with Elena over dinner, seeking her perspective on this major career decision. Papa, this sounds like an amazing opportunity, Elena said, her excitement genuine. You've been managing the Meridian building so well for years. Of course they want you to expand your responsibilities. I'm not sure I'm qualified for something this big, Marcus admitted. Managing one building is different from overseeing operations across the entire city. Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You taught me that qualifications aren't just about degrees or titles. They're about character, work ethic, and the ability to solve problems. You have all of those things. Marcus accepted the promotion, and the transition proved both challenging and rewarding. He found himself learning new technologies, managing larger teams, and developing strategic plans for improving efficiency across multiple properties. The work was demanding, but fulfilling in ways he hadn't expected. More importantly, the new role gave Marcus a sense of purpose and identity beyond being Elena's father. He was Marcus Rodriguez, district supervisor, a professional in his own right with valuable expertise and leadership abilities. Elena's 5th year at Meridian brought unprecedented success and recognition. Her environmental, social, and governance division was managing over $2 billion in assets and had been profiled in Forbes as the future of sustainable investing. Elena herself had been named to several 40 under 40 lists and was regularly invited to speak at international conferences. But it was also the year that everything Marcus and Elena thought they knew about their family would be challenged by an unexpected revelation. It started with a phone call on a Thursday evening in March. Marcus was reviewing maintenance schedules in his home office when his cell phone rang with an unknown number. "Is this Marcus Rodriguez?" a woman's voice asked hesitantly. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a genetic counselor at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Elena Rodriguez. Is she your daughter?" Marcus's blood ran cold. "Is Elena hurt?" "What happened?" No, she's fine," Dr. Chen said quickly. "I'm calling because Elena recently participated in a genetic testing study through her company's wellness program. The results revealed something unusual that she asked me to discuss with you." "What kind of something unusual?" "Mr. Rodriguez, could you and Elena come in for a consultation? This is the type of conversation that's better had in person." Marcus's mind raced through worst-case scenarios as he called Elena to relay the message. Elena was equally puzzled, but agreed to meet with Dr. Chen the following afternoon. The genetic counselor's office was sterile and clinical, filled with charts and diagrams that Marcus didn't understand. Dr. Chen was a kind-faced woman in her 40s who seemed genuinely concerned about their family's well-being. "Thank you both for coming," she began. "Elena, when you participated in the genetic wellness screening, we discovered something unexpected about your family history." Elena leaned forward. "What kind of something?" "The test revealed genetic markers that suggest you have a living biological sibling, a sister." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Marcus felt the room spinning as he processed what Dr. Chen had said. "That's impossible," Elena said slowly. "I was abandoned as a baby. There was no mention of other children." Dr. Chen consulted her notes. "Genetic testing isn't 100% precise about family relationships, but the markers suggest a sibling with 97% certainty. More significantly, this person is also in our database, which means she's undergone genetic testing recently as well." "You know who she is?" Marcus asked, finding his voice. "I can't share her personal information without her consent, but I can reach out to her and ask if she'd be interested in making contact." "Would you like me to do that?" Elena looked at Marcus, her eyes wide with shock and uncertainty. "Papa, what do you think?" Marcus's mind was reeling. For 22 years, he had been Elena's only family aside from Rosa. The idea that there might be another person out there who shared Elena's blood, who might have answers about their origins, was both thrilling and terrifying. "It's your decision, Mija," he said finally, "but I think we should find out what we can." Dr. Chen nodded. "I'll reach out to her today if she agrees to contact. I'll facilitate an introduction." The drive home was silent, both Marcus and Elena lost in their own thoughts. That evening, they sat in Marcus's living room, trying to process the implications of what they'd learned. "Do you think she was abandoned too?" Elena asked. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe her birth parents kept her, or maybe she was adopted by someone else." What if she's had a completely different life? What if she's angry that I was given up, but she wasn't? What if she wants nothing to do with us? Marcus could hear the anxiety in Elena's voice and recognized the overthinking pattern that had emerged whenever she faced uncertainty. Elena, we can't control any of those things. All we can do is be open to whatever happens, and remember that family isn't just about genetics. You're my daughter, period. Nothing anyone else says or does can change that. 3 days later, Dr. Chen called with news. Elena's biological sister, whose name was Isabella Martinez, had agreed to a meeting. She lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and worked as a pediatric nurse. She was 24 years old, which meant she had been born 2 years after Elena. The phone call between Elena and Isabella was awkward, but emotionally charged. Isabella explained that she had been raised by their biological mother, Maria, who had struggled with drug addiction and mental health issues throughout Isabella's childhood. Maria had died 3 years earlier from an overdose, but not before, revealing to Isabella that she had given birth to another daughter years earlier, whom she had been forced to abandon. She never told me your name or where she left you, Isabella explained, her voice thick with emotion. She said it was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but she knew she couldn't take care of 2 babies when she could barely take care of herself. Elena felt a complex mix of emotions: sadness for the mother she'd never known, relief that her abandonment hadn't been callous, and curiosity about this sister who had lived a completely different life. They arranged to meet in Chicago the following month. Marcus offered to give Elena and Isabella space for their first meeting, but Elena insisted that he be there. You're my father, she said firmly. Whatever family I might discover, you're the most important part of it. Isabella arrived on a Friday evening, and Marcus was struck by the resemblance between the sisters. They had the same dark hair, the same intelligent brown eyes, and similar facial features, though their life experiences had shaped them differently. Elena carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to boardrooms and high-stakes decisions, while Isabella had the calm, nurturing demeanor of someone who spent her days caring for sick children. Their first conversation lasted until 3 in the morning, with both sisters sharing their life stories and trying to piece together their family history. Isabella had brought photos of Maria, giving Elena her first glimpse of the woman who had given birth to her. She was beautiful, Elena said softly, studying a picture of a young woman with sad eyes and a hesitant smile. She was also very sick, Isabella replied gently. She tried to get clean several times, but the addiction was stronger than she was. In her lucid moments, she would talk about you constantly. She said giving you up was the most loving thing she'd ever done because she knew you deserved better than what she could provide. Marcus listened to their conversation with a mixture of emotions. He was grateful that Elena was finally getting answers about her origins, but he also felt a protective concern about how these revelations might affect her sense of identity and belonging. Over the following months, Elena and Isabella developed a close relationship, talking regularly and visiting each other several times. Isabella's grounded perspective and Marcus's unwavering support helped Elena integrate this new understanding of her past without letting it overshadow the life she had built. But the most significant impact of discovering Isabella wasn't emotional, it was professional. Through their conversations, Elena learned about the challenges Isabella faced working in pediatric healthcare, particularly the lack of resources for treating children from low-income families. Isabella's stories about families who couldn't afford necessary medical treatment sparked an idea that would transform Elena's approach to investing. Elena began researching healthcare access issues and developing investment strategies focused on companies working to improve medical care for underserved populations. She proposed creating a new fund specifically designed to generate both financial returns and measurable social impact in healthcare. Victoria was intrigued by the concept, but concerned about the complexity of measuring social outcomes alongside financial performance. It's an ambitious idea, Elena, Victoria said during their proposal meeting. But how do we quantify social impact in a way that satisfies our investors? Elena had anticipated this question and had developed a comprehensive framework for measuring healthcare access improvements patient outcomes, and community impact. Her presentation was thorough, passionate, and compelling. This isn't just about doing good, Elena explained. Companies that improve healthcare access are often more innovative, more efficient, and more sustainable than their competitors. We can generate strong returns while making a real difference in people's lives, Victoria approved. The fund and Elena spent the next 6 months developing investment criteria, identifying target companies, and building relationships with healthcare providers and community organizations. The Healthcare Access Fund launched with an initial investment of $500 million and immediately attracted attention from institutional investors interested in impact investing. The fund's success exceeded everyone's expectations. Within 18 months, it had generated 15% returns while funding companies that provided affordable medical care to over 2 million underserved patients. Elena's work was featured in Harvard Business Review as a case study in successful impact investing. But for Elena, the most meaningful aspect of the fund's success was knowing that Isabella's insights and experiences had contributed to its development. She had found a way to honor both her biological family's struggles and her adoptive family's values of service and compassion. By Elena's 7th year at Meridian Financial Services, industry speculation about Victoria Hawthorne's succession planning had become a regular topic in financial media. Victoria was 62 years old and had led the company for over 15 years, transforming it from a regional investment firm into a national powerhouse managing over $20 billion in assets. Elena's name appeared frequently in these succession discussions, along with several other senior executives. But unlike her peers, Elena had something unique: a combination of technical expertise, innovative thinking, and genuine concern for social impact that aligned perfectly with emerging trends in the investment industry. The conversation about Elena's future became more serious when Victoria called her into a private meeting on a Monday morning in October. "Elena, I want to discuss something important with you," Victoria began, gesturing for Elena to sit in one of the comfortable chairs near her office windows, overlooking the Chicago River. "Of course, what's on your mind?" "My retirement. I've been thinking about it seriously, and I want to start planning for a transition over the next 2 to 3 years. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. While she had known this conversation would happen eventually, the reality of Victoria's retirement felt sudden and overwhelming. "The board has asked me to develop a succession plan," Victoria continued. "There are several internal candidates being considered, but I want you to know that you're my top choice to eventually lead this company." The words hit Elena like a physical force. CEO of Meridian Financial Services. It was an opportunity she had dreamed about but never quite believed was possible. "Victoria, I'm honored, but I'm also terrified," Elena admitted. "I'm 30 years old. Most CEOs have decades more experience than I do. Most CEOs also haven't accomplished what you have in 7 years, Victoria replied. "You've built 3 successful divisions from the ground up, generated over $5 billion in profits, and established Meridian as a leader in sustainable investing. More importantly, you have the vision and integrity this company needs for the future." Victoria outlined a transition plan that would gradually increase Elena's responsibilities over the next 18 months, culminating in her appointment as president and chief operating officer. If Elena proved successful in that role, she would be positioned to become CEO when Victoria retired. "This is a big decision, Elena. It would mean even longer hours, more travel, and enormous pressure. You'd be responsible for thousands of employees and the financial security of millions of investors. I want you to think carefully about whether it's what you really want." Elena left Victoria's office in a daze, her mind spinning with the magnitude of what had been offered. That evening, she went straight to Marcus's apartment, needing the grounding presence of the man who had always helped her make sense of life's biggest challenges. Marcus listened to Elena's account of the meeting with growing pride and concern. He was thrilled about the recognition of Elena's abilities, but worried about the personal cost of such enormous responsibility. "What do you want to do, Mija?" he asked after Elena had finished explaining Victoria's proposal. "I don't know," Elena said honestly. Part of me is excited about the challenge and the opportunity to implement my ideas on a larger scale, but part of me is scared that I'm not ready, that I'll fail and let everyone down." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, considering his response carefully. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "Elena, when I found you in that loading dock 22 years ago, you were just a few days old, completely helpless and dependent on others for everything. Look at you now. You've overcome every challenge, exceeded every expectation, and built a career that most people can only dream about." He took her hands in his. "I can't tell you what decision to make about this opportunity, but I can tell you that you've never backed down from a challenge when you believed it was the right thing to do. The question isn't whether you're qualified, you are. The question is whether you believe you can use this position to make the kind of difference you've always wanted to make." Elena considered her father's words, and gradually, her anxiety began to transform into determination. She thought about Isabella's stories of families struggling to access healthcare, about the small investors whose retirement savings Meridian managed, about the environmental challenges that required innovative financial solutions. "I think I want to try," she said finally. "Then I think you should," Marcus replied, "and I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Elena accepted Victoria's offer the following week, beginning an intensive transition process that would test every skill she had developed over her career. She spent time with each of Meridian's division heads, learning the intricacies of operations that extended far beyond her investment expertise. She attended board meetings, met with major clients, and began developing her own vision for the company's future. The announcement of Elena's promotion to president and generated significant media attention. At 30, she was one of the youngest executives to reach such a position at a major financial services firm. The coverage was generally positive, highlighting her innovative approaches to sustainable investing and her track record of success, but there was also skepticism. Some industry veterans questioned whether Elena had sufficient experience to handle the operational complexities of a $20 billion company. A few articles included subtle suggestions that her rapid advancement might be due to factors other than merit. Marcus watched Elena navigate this scrutiny with admiration and concern. He could see the stress taking a toll on her, but he also witnessed her growing confidence as she proved herself in her expanded role. The real test came 6 months into Elena's tenure as president, when Meridian faced its first major crisis. Under her leadership, a cyber attack on the company's data systems compromised client information and temporarily shut down trading operations. The incident occurred on a Friday evening when Victoria was traveling internationally, leaving Elena as the senior executive responsible for managing the crisis. Elena's response demonstrated the leadership qualities that had impressed Victoria. She immediately convened the crisis management team, coordinated with cybersecurity experts and law enforcement, and personally called every major client to explain the situation and the steps being taken to address it. More importantly, Elena took full responsibility for the security failures that had allowed the attack to succeed. Even though the vulnerabilities had existed long before her promotion, she implemented comprehensive new security protocols, hired additional cybersecurity staff, and required every employee to undergo enhanced training on data protection. The crisis was resolved within 72 hours with minimal long-term impact on operations or client relationships. Elena's handling of the situation earned praise from the board, clients, and industry observers. More significantly, it proved to herself that she could lead under pressure and make difficult decisions when the stakes were highest. As Elena's first year as president concluded, Victoria began finalizing her retirement plans. The board had been impressed with Elena's performance and unanimously supported her appointment as the next CEO. The transition would be announced publicly in 6 months, with Victoria remaining as chairman of the board for 2 years to ensure continuity. Elena felt ready for the challenge, but she also knew that becoming CEO would fundamentally change her relationship with Marcus and the rest of her personal life. The demands of leading Meridian would require even more time, travel, and emotional energy than her current role. On the evening before the CEO announcement was scheduled to be made public, Elena invited Marcus to dinner at her apartment. She had something important to discuss with him, something that had been weighing on her mind throughout the transition process. "Papa, there's something I need to talk to you about," Elena began as they finished the meal she had prepared. Marcus noticed the serious tone in her voice and gave her his full attention. "When I become CEO, everything will change. The scrutiny will be more intense. The demands will be greater, and my time will be even more limited than it is now. I'm worried about how that will affect our relationship." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "Elena, our relationship isn't going anywhere. You'll be busier, yes, but you'll still be my daughter, and I'll still be proud of everything you accomplish." "There's something else," Elena continued. "The media attention that comes with being CEO can be invasive. Reporters might want to interview you, might dig into our family history. I want to make sure you're prepared for that and comfortable with it." Marcus smiled. "Mija, I've been preparing for this conversation for 22 years. Do you remember what I told you the night you were worried about starting kindergarten?" Elena shook her head. "I told you that no matter how big your world got, no matter how many people you met or how successful you became, you would always have a home with me. That hasn't changed." Marcus paused, his expression growing more thoughtful. "Elena, I want you to know that being your father has been the greatest privilege of my life. Watching you grow from that tiny baby in the loading dock to the woman you are today has been my proudest achievement. Whatever comes next, whatever challenges you face as CEO, I'll be here cheering you on." Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes. "What if I fail? What if I'm not as good at this as everyone thinks I'll be?" "Then you'll learn from it and get better," Marcus said simply. "Just like you always have. Elena, you've never failed at anything you truly committed to. I don't expect you to start now." The next morning, Meridian Financial Services announced that Elena Rodriguez would become the company's youngest CEO. In its 50-year history, the news generated significant media coverage, with most outlets focusing on Elena's innovative approaches to sustainable investing and her rapid rise through the company ranks. But the story that meant the most to Elena appeared in the Chicago Tribune's local section. It was a brief article about Marcus Rodriguez, the district maintenance supervisor who had found an abandoned baby 22 years ago and raised her to become a Fortune 500 CEO. The article included a photo of Marcus at his workstation, surrounded by the building maintenance schedules and safety protocols that kept Chicago's business district running smoothly. The caption read, "Marcus Rodriguez, whose daughter Elena Rodriguez was named CEO of Meridian Financial Services this week, continues his work ensuring the city's commercial buildings operate safely and efficiently." Elena framed that article and hung it in her new executive office, right next to her Harvard diploma and the photo of her adoption day. It served as a daily reminder of where she came from and the values that would guide her leadership of one of the country's most influential financial institutions. Elena's first year as CEO of Meridian Financial Services was marked by bold initiatives that transformed both the company's culture and its market position. She implemented profit-sharing programs for all employees, established partnerships with community colleges to create pathways for non-traditional candidates to enter the financial services industry, and launched a foundation focused on financial literacy education in underserved communities. Under Elena's leadership, Meridian became the first major investment firm to achieve carbon neutrality across all operations and investments. The company's environmental, social, and governance funds grew to manage over $8 billion in assets, making Meridian a global leader in sustainable investing. But perhaps Elena's most significant innovation was the creation of the Community Investment Initiative, a program that allocated a percentage of company profits to investments in local businesses and community development projects. The initiative was inspired by Elena's understanding of how access to capital could transform lives and neighborhoods. Marcus watched Elena's accomplishments with immense pride, but he also noticed the toll that leading such a complex organization was taking on her. She worked longer hours than ever, traveled constantly for investor meetings and conferences, and carried the weight of decisions that affected thousands of employees. and millions of investors. Their weekly dinners became even more important as anchoring points in Elena's increasingly demanding schedule. Marcus made sure these evenings were protected time, free from work discussions, unless Elena needed to process particular challenges. It was during one of these dinners, on a Tuesday evening in November, that Elena shared news that would change both their lives in unexpected ways. "Papa, I've been thinking about something for a while, and I want your opinion," Elena began, her tone more serious than usual. "Of course, Mija. What's on your mind?" "The building where you found me where you still work, Meridian Tower. We've been leasing space there for over 20 years, and the lease is up for renewal next year." Marcus nodded, unsure where the conversation was heading. "I've been looking at the building's finances, and I think Meridian should buy it. We need more space anyway for our expanding operations, and owning the building would give us more control over our working environment." The idea made financial sense, but Marcus sensed there was more to Elena's proposal. "There's something else," Elena continued. "If we buy the building, I want to renovate the loading dock area and create a memorial garden, a place that honors the idea that everyone deserves a chance to thrive, regardless of where they start in life." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Elena, that's a beautiful idea, but you don't need to." "Yes, I do," Elena interrupted gently. "That loading dock isn't just where you found me. It's where my life began, where I learned that love can come from the most unexpected places. I want other people to know that story, to understand that hope can be found anywhere." The board approved Elena's proposal to purchase Meridian Tower, and the acquisition was completed 6 months later. Elena personally oversaw the renovation of the loading dock, working with architects and landscape designers to create a peaceful garden space, with a small plaque that read, "Every ending can be a beginning. Every act of kindness changes the world." The Memorial Garden's dedication ceremony was a small, private affair attended by Elena, Marcus, Isabella, and a few close colleagues. Victoria Hawthorne spoke about the importance of remembering that business success should serve human flourishing, not the other way around. But it was Marcus's brief remarks that brought everyone to tears. 22 years ago, I was just doing my job when I heard a baby crying," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "I never imagined that answering that cry would lead to this moment, to this garden, to the incredible woman my daughter has become. Elena has taught me that love multiplies when you give it away, and that the most important treasures are the ones you find when you're not looking for them." Elena hugged her father tightly as the small crowd applauded. "Thank you, Papa, for everything." Elena's second year as CEO brought international recognition and new challenges. She was invited to speak at the World Economic Forum about sustainable investing, testified before Congress about financial industry reform, and was featured on the cover of Time magazine as one of the next generation leaders shaping the global economy. Meridian's growth under Elena's leadership was unprecedented. The company's assets under management grew to $30 billion. They opened offices in London and Tokyo, and their innovative investment strategies were studied by business schools around the world. But success also brought increased scrutiny and pressure. Elena found herself navigating complex regulatory issues, managing relationships with institutional investors who didn't always share her values-driven approach, and defending her leadership style against critics who viewed her emphasis on social impact as potentially detrimental to financial returns. It was during this period of intense professional pressure that Elena made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She enrolled in evening classes at a local community college, taking basic automotive repair courses. Marcus was puzzled when Elena told him about the classes. "Mija, why do you want to learn auto repair? You can afford to hire people to fix your car." Elena laughed. "It's not about the money, Papa. I've realized that I've spent so much time in boardrooms and conference rooms that I've lost touch with working with my hands, with solving practical problems. I want to remember what it feels like to fix something tangible, something real." The auto repair classes became Elena's escape from the pressures of corporate leadership. Working on engines and transmissions reminded her of the satisfaction that came from diagnosing problems and implementing solution skills. That translated surprisingly well to business challenges. More importantly, the classes connected Elena with people from completely different backgrounds and life experiences. Her classmates included single mothers trying to save money on car repairs, recent immigrants starting their own automotive businesses, and retirees exploring new hobbies. These relationships grounded Elena and reminded her why her work is sustainable. Investing in community development mattered. One of her classmates was a young woman named Sophia, a single mother of two who was studying automotive repair to start her own mobile mechanics business. Sophia's determination and entrepreneurial spirit reminded Elena of her own journey, and they developed a friendship that extended beyond the classroom. When Sophia shared her struggles to secure a small business loan to purchase equipment for her mechanics business, Elena saw an opportunity to put Meridian's community investment principles into action. She worked with the company's small business lending partners to create a program specifically designed to support women and minority entrepreneurs in trades and technical fields. Sophia became the program's first loan recipient, using the funding to purchase a fully equipped mobile repair van and launch her business. Within 18 months, Sophia's company was profitable enough to hire 3 additional mechanics and expand throughout the Chicago metropolitan area. The success of Sophia's business and similar ventures funded through Meridian's community investment program demonstrated that Elena's vision of profitable social impact wasn't just idealistic. It was practical and scalable. These experiences reinforced Elena's belief that business leaders had a responsibility to create opportunities for others, just as Marcus had created opportunities for her through his love, sacrifice, and unwavering support. Elena's third year as CEO marked a milestone that neither she nor Marcus had ever imagined possible. Forbes magazine named Elena to their list of the world's most powerful women, ranking her among heads of state, technology innovators, and entertainment moguls whose influence extended far beyond their immediate industries. The recognition came with a detailed profile of Elena's life and career, including the story of how Marcus had found her as an abandoned infant and raised her to become one of the youngest CEOs in American corporate history. The article sparked international media attention and thousands of letters from people around the world who were inspired by their family's journey, but the recognition that meant the most to Elena came from an unexpected source. The Chicago Board of Education invited her to speak at a graduation ceremony for students in the district's alternative education program, young people who had overcome significant challenges to complete their high school education, standing before an audience of students who had faced poverty, family instability, teenage parenthood, and other obstacles. Elena felt more nervous than she had addressing rooms full of billionaire investors or government officials. "When I was your age," she began, "I thought success meant having all the answers, never making mistakes, and proving that I belonged in rooms where other people weren't sure I should be." The auditorium was completely silent as Elena shared her story. The loading dock, Marcus's decision to foster her, the challenges of growing up with limited financial resources, but unlimited love and support. "What I've learned is that success isn't about where you start or what advantages you have," Elena continued. "It's about how you respond to challenges, how you treat other people, and whether you use your opportunities to create opportunities for others." She talked about the importance of education, hard work, and persistence, but also about the value of kindness, integrity, and remembering where you came from. "Some of you will become teachers, some will become entrepreneurs, some will become parents who raise the next generation of leaders. All of those paths are valuable, and all of them matter. What's important is that you find ways to lift others up as you climb." After the ceremony, Elena was approached by a young woman named Maria who thanked her for her speech. "Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted you to know that your story gives me hope," Maria said. "I aged out of foster care last year, and sometimes I feel like I'm starting life with no advantages. But hearing about you and your father makes me believe that family isn't just about biology, it's about who chooses to love you and support you." Elena felt tears in her eyes as she listened to Maria's words. "You're absolutely right. And Maria, if you ever need someone to believe in you, you have my contact information." That conversation reinforced Elena's growing conviction that her platform as CEO should be used to advocate for young people facing challenges similar to those she might have faced. If Marcus hadn't found her that night, Elena established the Second Chances Scholarship Program through the Meridian Foundation, providing full college scholarships and mentorship support for students aging out of foster care. The program quickly became a model for other corporations, demonstrating how businesses could create meaningful impact while building talent pipelines for their industries. Marcus watched Elena's humanitarian work with the same pride he had felt when she learned to walk, graduated from Harvard, and became CEO. But he was most proud of how success hadn't changed Elena's fundamental character, her kindness, her humility, and her commitment to helping others. As Elena's public profile continued to grow, Marcus found himself thrust into an unfamiliar spotlight. Reporters wanted to interview him. Documentary filmmakers asked to tell their story, and speaking agencies invited him to share his perspective on parenting and finding purpose. Initially, Marcus was uncomfortable with the attention. He had always been a private person who preferred to let his work speak for itself. But as he began to understand how their story inspired other people, particularly those considering foster care or adoption, he became more willing to participate in public discussions. Marcus's first major interview was with a national morning television show, where he appeared alongside Elena to discuss their family's journey. The interviewer asked Marcus what advice he would give to other people considering fostering or adopting children. "Love is the most important thing," Marcus said simply. "Children need to know they're wanted, they're safe, and they have people who will fight for them. Everything else, the practical stuff, the money, the logistics, you figure it out as you go." "What about people who worry they're not qualified to be parents?" the interviewer asked. Marcus smiled. "I was a 42-year-old janitor who had never changed a diaper when I found Elena. I wasn't qualified either, but I was willing to learn, and I was committed to doing whatever it took to give her the best life possible." That willingness and commitment matter more than any qualifications on paper. The interview generated an overwhelming response from viewers. Foster care agencies across the country reported increased inquiries from potential families, and several organizations invited Marcus to speak at recruitment events. Marcus discovered that he enjoyed sharing their story and encouraging others to consider fostering or adoption. He developed a standard presentation that focused on practical advice, emotional preparation, and the profound rewards of providing stable homes for children who needed them. Elena supported Marcus's newfound advocacy work while also ensuring that their private relationship remained protected from public scrutiny. They established boundaries about what aspects of their personal lives they would share publicly, and which would remain sacred and private between them. Elena's fourth year as CEO brought Meridian Financial Services to new heights of success and influence. The company's sustainable investment strategies had generated over $12 billion in profits, while funding renewable energy projects, affordable housing developments, and healthcare innovations that improved millions of lives. Elena's leadership philosophy that businesses should generate financial returns while creating positive social impact had moved from the margins of corporate thinking to the mainstream. Major companies across industries were adopting environmental, social, and governance principles in their operations and investment decisions. But the recognition that would prove most meaningful to Elena and Marcus came from an unexpected source: the White House. President Sarah Martinez had been following Elena's work for several years and was impressed by both her business accomplishments and her commitment to using corporate success to address social challenges. When the president decided to establish a new advisory council on economic opportunity and social mobility, Elena was among the first people she invited to participate. The council's mission was to develop policy recommendations for reducing economic inequality and creating pathways for upward mobility for Americans from all backgrounds. Elena's lived experience with adoption and foster care, combined with her expertise in finance and investment, made her a valuable voice in these discussions. Elena's first White House meeting was both thrilling and humbling. Sitting in the Roosevelt Room discussing economic policy with other business leaders, academics, and government officials, She couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought her to this moment. After the meeting, Elena called Marcus. From her hotel room in Washington, D.C. "Papa, I just finished my first White House meeting," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "How did it go, Mija?" "It was incredible. We talked about ways to help kids aging out of foster care, programs to support small business development in underserved communities, and policies to make higher education more accessible. I felt like everything we've been working on at Meridian was relevant to the conversation." Marcus smiled as he listened to Elena's excitement. "I'm proud of you, Elena, not just because you're in the White House, but because you're using your position to help other people. I couldn't have gotten here without you, Papa. Every lesson you taught me, every sacrifice you made, every time you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, that all led to this moment." Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes. "Elena, you got here because of your own hard work, intelligence, and character. I just had the privilege of watching you grow into the amazing woman you were always meant to become." Elena's work with the Presidential Advisory Council led to several policy recommendations that were eventually implemented, including expanded support for foster care alumni pursuing higher education and new tax incentives for businesses that invested in community development projects. But the council work also introduced Elena to Dr. James Morrison, a pediatric surgeon and researcher who shared her passion for improving healthcare access for underserved populations. James had grown up in rural poverty and had dedicated his career to developing low-cost medical technologies that could be used in resource-limited settings. Elena and James's professional collaboration gradually evolved into a personal relationship that surprised Elena with its depth and compatibility. James understood the demands of Elena's career because he faced similar pressures in his own work. More importantly, he shared her values of service, integrity, and using success to create opportunities for others. When Elena introduced James to Marcus, she was nervous about how her father would react to the first serious relationship she'd had since college. Marcus had always been protective of Elena, and she worried that no one would ever seem good enough to the man who had sacrificed so much for her. But Marcus immediately warmed to James, appreciating his humility, his commitment to helping others, and the obvious respect and affection he showed Elena. During their first dinner together, James asked Marcus thoughtful questions about his work and listened with genuine interest to stories about Elena's childhood. "He makes you happy," Marcus observed after James left that evening. "He does," Elena admitted. "Is that okay with you?" Marcus laughed. "Elena, you're 32 years old and the CEO of a major corporation. You don't need my permission to be happy, but yes, it's more than okay with me. I like him." Elena's relationship with James developed steadily over the following year. They supported each other's demanding careers, traveled together when their schedules allowed, and began talking seriously about their future together. When James proposed during a quiet weekend at Elena's apartment with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother and a speech about wanting to build a life dedicated to serving others together, Elena said yes without hesitation. The engagement announcement generated significant media attention, with financial publications speculating about how marriage might affect Elena's career trajectory. But Elena and James were focused on more personal considerations like how to blend their lives while maintaining their individual commitments to their work and communities. Marcus was thrilled about the engagement and touched when James asked for his blessing before proposing. "Elena is the most important person in my life," James told Marcus. "I want you to know that I understand what a privilege it is to love her, and I promise to support her dreams and treat her with the respect she deserves." "Take care of each other," Marcus replied. "That's all I've ever wanted for Elena, someone who will love her as much as she deserves to be loved." The wedding was planned for the following spring, a celebration that would bring together Elena's professional colleagues, Marcus's extended family from Chicago's Latino community, Isabella, and her family from Phoenix, and James's relatives from rural Kentucky. The guest list reflected the diverse worlds that Elena had moved between throughout her life. As Elena's 5th year as CEO began, she faced a decision that would define both her future and the future of Meridian Financial Services, a massive German investment bank had made an acquisition offer that valued Meridian at $45 billion, nearly double the company's estimated worth just 3 years earlier. The offer was unprecedented in both its size and its strategic implications. The German bank, Hauptmann Financial Group, was one of Europe's largest financial institutions, with operations spanning 50 countries and assets under management exceeding $100 billion. Hauptmann's CEO, Klaus Weber, flew to Chicago personally to present the acquisition proposal to Elena and Meridian's board of directors. The offer included guarantees that Elena would retain operational control of Meridian's North American operations and continue leading the company's sustainable investing initiatives. This partnership would give Meridian access to global markets and resources that would allow your vision of sustainable investing to reach every corner of the world, Weber explained during his presentation. Your innovations in environmental, social, and governance investing could transform how the entire financial industry approaches social responsibility. The financial terms were generous beyond anything Elena had imagined. Every Meridian employee would receive significant bonuses, shareholders would realize extraordinary returns, and Elena herself would become one of the wealthiest women in America. But Elena was troubled by aspects of Hauptmann's business model that seemed to conflict with the values she had built into Meridian's culture. Despite their interest in sustainable investing, Hauptmann continued to finance fossil fuel projects, weapons manufacturing, and companies with questionable labor practices. Elena spent weeks reviewing Hauptmann's portfolio, interviewing their executives, and researching their corporate culture. The more she learned, the more concerned she became that an acquisition would compromise Meridian's mission and values. The decision was made more complex by pressure from some board members and investors who viewed the acquisition as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to maximize returns. They argued that Elena's concerns about Hauptmann's practices were idealistic and impractical in the context of global finance. Elena found herself in the difficult position of potentially disappointing people who had supported her career while staying true to the principles that had guided her leadership. She sought advice from Victoria, who had remained involved as chairman of the board, and from Marcus, whose perspective she valued above all others. "What does your gut tell you, Mija?" Marcus asked during one of their dinner conversations about the acquisition. "That this is the wrong decision for the wrong reasons," Elena replied. "The money is tempting, but I keep thinking about all the people whose retirement savings we manage, all the companies we've funded that are trying to make the world better. Would this acquisition help them or hurt them?" Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "You know what I think about that. But Elena, this is your decision to make. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. What if I'm wrong? What if turning down this offer hurts our employees and shareholders? And what if you're right? What if accepting it compromises everything you've worked to build?" Elena made her decision after a weekend spent reviewing every major investment Meridian had made. Under her leadership, she thought about Sophia, the single mother whose mechanics business had been funded by Meridian's community investment program. She thought about the renewable energy projects that were reducing carbon emissions and creating jobs in rural communities. She thought about the scholarship recipients who were the first in their families to attend college. On Monday morning, Elena convened an emergency board meeting and announced that she was recommending they decline Hauptmann's acquisition offer. "The financial terms are attractive," Elena told the board, "but the strategic fit is wrong. Hauptmann's business practices conflict with our values and mission. Accepting this offer would require us to compromise principles that are fundamental to our identity as a company." The board meeting was contentious, with several members expressing strong disagreement with Elena's recommendation. But ultimately, the board voted to support Elena's decision, trusting her judgment and long-term vision for the company. The announcement that Meridian had rejected Hauptmann's acquisition offer generated significant media coverage and industry speculation. Some analysts criticized the decision as financially irresponsible, while others praised Elena's commitment to maintaining the company's ethical standards. More importantly, the decision reinforced Elena's credibility with employees, clients, and community partners who had been concerned about how an acquisition might affect Meridian's mission and culture. 6 months later, Elena's decision was vindicated when Hauptmann Financial Group was implicated in a major money laundering scandal that resulted in billions of dollars in fines and the resignation of several top executives. The investigation revealed systematic corruption and unethical practices that would have severely damaged Meridian's reputation if the acquisition had proceeded. Elena's rejection of the acquisition offer became a case study in values-based leadership, demonstrating how long-term thinking and ethical decision-making could create more sustainable value than short-term financial gains. Elena's 6th year as CEO brought an opportunity that would complete the circle of her remarkable journey in the most unexpected way possible. The city of Chicago announced plans to redevelop the entire neighborhood where Elena had been found as a baby, transforming it into a mixed-use district that would combine affordable housing, community services, and business development. The redevelopment project, called the Second Chances Community Initiative, was designed to revitalize an area that had struggled with poverty, unemployment, and inadequate infrastructure for decades. The city was seeking private sector partners who could provide both financial investment and innovative approaches to community development. Elena saw the project as a perfect opportunity to implement Meridian's community investment philosophy on a transformational scale. She proposed that Meridian lead a consortium of investors and community organizations to develop the area as a model for sustainable urban development. The proposal included affordable housing for families across income levels, a community health clinic staffed by residents from the University of Chicago Medical School, small business incubation spaces for local entrepreneurs, and an early childhood education center that would serve as a pipeline for educational opportunity. But the centerpiece of Elena's proposal was the Marcus Rodriguez Community Center, a facility that would provide job training, financial literacy education, and social services for residents throughout the neighborhood. The center would be built on the exact location where Marcus had found Elena 26 years earlier. When Elena presented the proposal to Marcus, she was surprised by his emotional reaction. "Elena, you don't need to name anything after me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was just doing what anyone would have done." "No, Papa, you did what the right person would do. And this community center will help other people do what you did, give children and families the support they need to thrive." The city approved Meridian's proposal, and construction began on what would become a $200 million community development project. Elena personally supervised every aspect of the planning, working with architects, community leaders, and social service organizations to ensure the development would truly serve the people who lived there. The project attracted attention from urban planners, social policy experts, and business leaders around the world who were interested in replicable models for community development. Elena found herself giving presentations about the project at conferences and universities, always emphasizing that the initiative's success depended on meaningful community involvement and long-term commitment. But the most meaningful moment came during the groundbreaking ceremony, when Elena and Marcus stood together at the site where their lives had intersected 26 years earlier. Mayor Rodriguez, no relation, despite the shared surname, spoke about the importance of public-private partnerships in addressing urban challenges. Community leaders talked about their hopes for the neighborhood's future. Business reporters covered the innovative financing structures that made the project possible. But it was Marcus's brief remarks that brought everyone to tears. 26 years ago, I walked through this area every night as part of my job, he said, standing at the podium with Elena beside him. I never imagined that one winter night would change not just my life, but the life of the incredible woman standing next to me. And I never imagined that Elena would bring us back here to change other people's lives too. He turned to Elena, his eyes bright with tears and pride. "Mija, you've taught me that love creates more love, that opportunity creates more opportunity, and that when we invest in each other, we all become richer." Elena hugged her father as the crowd applauded, both of them thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a loading dock to a boardroom to this construction site, where hope was being built from the ground up. The auditorium at the Marcus Rodriguez Community Center was filled to capacity. with audience members ranging from neighborhood children to international business leaders. Elena, now 52 years old and in her 20th year as CEO of Meridian Financial Services, was delivering the keynote address at the center's anniversary celebration. Marcus, 78 years old but still sharp and active, sat in the front row next to Elena's husband James and their two teenage children, Sophia and Miguel. The kids had grown up, hearing the story of how their grandfather had found their mother in a loading dock, but they were still amazed by the impact that single act of compassion had created. 20 years ago, my father and I stood on this spot and talked about second chances. Elena began her speech. Today, this community center has provided educational opportunities for over 10,000 children, job training for 5,000 adults, and healthcare services for 15,000 families. But more importantly, it has demonstrated that every person has the potential to contribute something valuable to the world if they're given the opportunity and support they need. Elena went on to describe the ripple effects of the community development project. The neighborhood's unemployment rate had dropped from 35% to 8%. High school graduation rates had increased from 40% to 92%. Property values had stabilized, crime had decreased, and dozens of small businesses had opened and thrived. These statistics matter, Elena continued, but what matters more are the individual stories, like Maria Gonzalez, who started as a student in our GED program and now manages 3 small businesses in the neighborhood, like David Chen, who received job training in renewable energy installation and now employs 27 people in his solar panel company, like the Rodriguez family, no relation to us, despite the name, whose daughter became the first person in their family to attend college and is now a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. Elena paused and looked directly at Marcus. My father taught me that love multiplies when you give it away. This community center has proven that opportunity multiplies the same way. When we invest in people, when we believe in their potential, when we provide them with tools and support, they don't just succeed, they create success for others. After the ceremony, Elena and Marcus walked through the community center together, visiting the computer lab where children were learning coding, the kitchen where adults were taking culinary arts classes, and the health clinic where families were receiving preventive medical care. Are you proud of what we've built here, Papa? Elena asked as they stood in the lobby, surrounded by photos documenting the center's 20-year history. Marcus smiled and took Elena's hand. I'm proud of what you've built, Elena, the center, your company, your family, your life, all of it is a testament to the incredible person you've always been. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Yes, you could have, Marcus replied gently. You were always destined for greatness, Mija. I just had the privilege of helping you discover it. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she looked around the bustling community center, thinking about all the lives that had been changed in this space. Children laughing in the daycare center, teenagers studying for college entrance exams, adults learning new skills that would support their families. What do you think will happen next? Elena asked. Marcus chuckled. With you in charge, probably. Something none of us can imagine yet. But whatever it is, I know it will be amazing. As they walked toward the exit, Elena noticed a young maintenance worker emptying trash bins and cleaning the lobby floors. She stopped to thank him for his work, chatting briefly about his family and his goals for the future. You never know, Marcus whispered to Elena as they watched the young man continue his work with obvious pride. What extraordinary things might start with ordinary acts of service? Elena smiled, understanding that her father was right. Every ending was a beginning. Every act of kindness created possibilities, and every person had the potential to change the world, sometimes in ways they would never fully understand. Outside the community center, the Chicago skyline stretched toward the horizon, including the Meridian Financial Services Tower where Elena continued to work, and Marcus had once cleaned offices late into the night. But now the building was part of a larger story, a testament to what was possible when love, opportunity, and determination intersected at exactly the right moment. Elena looked up at the building where her professional life had begun and thought about the loading dock where her personal life had been saved. Both were part of the same story, now a story about finding treasure in unexpected places and learning that the most important investments are the ones we make for each other. "Come on, Papa," Elena said, linking her arm through Marcus's. "Let's go home." As they walked away from the community center together, neither of them noticed the young maintenance worker who had stopped his work to watch them leave. But if they had turned around, they would have seen him smile as he returned to his tasks, humming softly to himself and thinking about his own dreams for the future. Some circles, after all, are meant to continue forever. What did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest tales. What kind of story would you like to hear next?